Okay, so I have Dawn, Helen, Danny, Sheldon, Ashley, Tracy, Sherilyn, Annalise, and Susan. Is there anyone that I missed? Awesome. Cool. One more person came in. Who else just joined?
Hi, this is Leslie from Iowa.
Welcome, Leslie. Bill here. All right, cool. So let's get going because we're a few minutes after the hour here. So welcome. My name is Bill Kenny, and I guess I'd probably call myself your host for today's call. So just so we're all starting with the same frame of reference, the mission of the National Invention Convention is to provide students with opportunities to develop creative problem solving and problem identification techniques through inventing, innovating, and entrepreneurial activities, leading to greater consideration of STEM careers in high school and college. So we really appreciate you all participating in the steering committee. You probably hear me going a little bit fast here. I made the mistake today of sending my slides to Danny, and then he sent them back to me, and they're much bigger than what I guess I would think fits in an hour. So in any event, we're gonna pace through this, and we're gonna finish on time. So here's what we're gonna pop into today, and so we're gonna talk very quickly about who's who in STEMI. I guess there have been some questions about who's sort of the leadership of the organization, the update on the USPTO and what's going on for the event in DC, the letters of interest, surveys and newsletters, a few different details there. We'll talk about space, as in not here, but outside the atmosphere, and sponsor packages. We've got some stuff to review there, and then we'll talk a little bit about joint fundraising, and then kind of what do we do next. So I'm going to kind of pass back and forth with Danny here, who's going to talk through some of these items. So, Danny, do you want to talk about who's who at the STEMI?
Sure. Go ahead and run to the next slide. So we've gotten questions from people asking us sort of who's doing what. They've heard a lot of names. They're getting emails from different people and sort of wanted to know who plays what role. We're still formalizing a lot of things. Titles are still in flux, and we're still working through a lot of HR things. But in general, here's a list of the names that you may encounter. You may encounter when interfacing with us on different levels. Myself, Helen, and Sherilyn are going to be helping out a lot of people in terms of growing their programs and outright development issues. Sonia's got a lot of experience with grant writing and with event logistics and running some of the large-scale aspects of convention invention. Bill is in charge of community building and making sure we get on the phone calls here and gets everything down and making sure that we're spreading best practices and learning about each other. My friend Garrett Case, who used to do PR for AT&T, is going to be handling our national Marcom. And Ed Fair, CIO of multiple, is going to be helping us for all startups. And so,
Danny, just so you know, your phone, I believe, is fading in and out.
What?
Your phone is fading in and out. Are you, just in the last couple of things you said, you were fading in and out.
Yeah, I see it's dropped down to 2 bars. Okay, well, let's go ahead to the next slide then.
Sure.
I'll try to dial in on a different line. Bill, let me just, tell me if it gets to be so bad I need to call in again. Do you want me to call in?
I will
call in? Okay. In terms of the major things going on in D.C. around the event itself, we're working to finalize our joint partner agreement, which governs our use of the facilities and our use of our access to USPTO resources. We've submitted our space request and our event budget, and we're working with the USPTO now to really understand its goals and how to articulate those goals into the actual agenda. So in other words, if they say that they would love to do a session on an overview for the kids on what a patent is and how it's filed and what happens at the USPTO, and we would make that session available to them. We've allocated the morning of Friday for educational sessions with the students, and on Saturday, during the judging time, educational sessions for the teachers. And so we're trying to figure out what goes in, what slots into those different sessions, working with them. But USPTO has pretty much a first right of refusal on topics in those sessions. So just trying to figure that out. In DC, we're working to understand a lot of the transportation logistics and expense around moving people around DC to help us guide and inform the agenda decision. And that's just preliminary. But in case you're wondering what's going on with us and down in DC and the event itself, that's what's going on.
Cool.
Bill?
Excellent. So next is the letters of interest and the surveys and newsletters.
So next slide. So thanks to everyone who has sent out LOIs. There are a few stragglers that we're still working with, but almost everybody's in. That's awesome. You have recently received a request to fill out a survey that'll help us drive the allocations model so we can figure out how to divvy up the 300 slots. So if you could please complete that as soon as possible. If you don't know figures off the top of your head, like you don't know how many schools, you know how many districts but not how many schools, well, try to just take an average number of schools per district in your state and just multiply it that way. It doesn't have to be perfect. It takes a lot to move this algorithm, so I wouldn't worry too much about being off by a little bit. It's more important to get the numbers in. And of course, we sent out this week's update, our biweekly update in the email yesterday. Be sure to read that. We don't necessarily cover that content on these phone calls or any other mechanism, so it's there for you guys to have as content, but we're not going to cover it. But thanks for I know we're sending a lot of paperwork your way. Thanks for putting up with it and helping us move the ball forward.
Excellent. Thank you. You sound much better now. There is someone that has a little bit of a hum every once in a while, so I don't think it's coming from you, though. So you wanted to get into talking about space, and the idea was how important should space be to what we recognize or what we do at the National Convention. Is that correct?
Well, actually, why don't you go to the next slide and I'll walk into it.
Yeah.
We're laying out here for your comment some suggestions for award categories. What we're going to try to do is map the award categories over to sponsors in order to get sponsored award categories to help fund the event itself. And we looked at the award categories that many of you have in your programs already, and we sort of lay this out there for your consideration and for any feedback from you guys. I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 or 9 categories there on top. Now, all of these are things that a kid could invent an invention around based on their personal experience, whether they're eating and they want to do something around food, or they're using their phone and they want to do something on their phone for communication. And you can see them slotting into each of those. I would love to get your feedback from anybody if anything is obviously missing, or if people just feel this is just way too many. It was much longer, and we tried to consolidate and group them together here. But any feedback from anybody on the top table?
This is Leslie from Iowa. On my first glance, it seems like a few too many categories, because at other national competitions that I work in, you end up having maybe just a couple students that are in a certain category. And so what emerges is you have very popular categories. Now, I know that doesn't help, but kind of collapsing it a little bit more, I think would be good. And I actually also have another question. Does this list match your mission statement? I walked in right when you were putting it up. Are these specifically categories all STEM? Because you said it was to increase STEM, but I'm seeing categories on here. I mean, do like government and finance have to be around a STEM issue, or?
Well, so there are two. That's a great question, and there are two answers that I would give to that. One thing that comes out of Christine Heckert's comments from Brocade Networks in the newsletter is that, Invention and entrepreneurship is a line of inquiry on its own right, and that it doesn't have to go from STEM into invention into entrepreneurship in order to be valid. You've got many kids that may not be interested in STEM whatsoever but want to be inventors and entrepreneurs, and we should not be constraining that. Our mission statement today doesn't really reflect that, and one of the things that we've just been talking about in car conversations as we drive around is that, should we update the mission statement? What do we think? And I'd love to hear everybody's thoughts on that without going too far a kilter. But there's probably, you're right, there's probably a discussion to be had about wordsmithing the mission statement. We just sort of thought that with everything on our plates, that's probably the last thing we want to start doing, but it's a very good point. The second point
so
I would be,
yeah, go ahead.
second point is that STEM things that is,
Danny, you're fading out pretty bad now.
yeah, I'm down to one bar and I don't understand it. Okay, so I'm probably going to call back in, Bill, but could you go ahead and keep this going?
Yeah, no problem. Good. Well, Leslie, thank you. So you were going to say something to Danny's comment.
Yeah.
Why don't you share that?
First of all, like with our STEM Innovator program, we are definitely liking the second part that you can learn STEM through any of these, to be an entrepreneur through any of these outlets. So I would like to see if you truly are letting events in that are, or inventions in that aren't specifically STEM, I'd just like to see the mission statement match that a little better.
Yep, that totally makes sense.
Because when you read the mission statement, I think a kid or teacher would be like, oh, the projects have to be STEM. And that might, drive some kids away.
Yep, totally makes sense.
And what do you mean by organization as a category? I haven't seen that one before. Do you know?
That's it's funny because Danny sent me a much longer list, and I ended up consolidating it down to what you see here. And so that was one of the ones that I couldn't, very easily, it didn't seem like fit into any of the other ones. So I don't know where that came from. I guess he must have found that from someone else's, one of the state or regional invention conventions. But I think ultimately, I guess our thought has been that, right now it's probably about 13 categories, and maybe we want to get it down to 8 or something, maybe even 6 as an ultimate goal. But Danny, are you back on?
Right. So organization can be storage facilities. So a lot of kids do stuff around where to place things, backpacks, bookcases, something for their twin bed. So think of it in an IKEA type of way.
So it could be household. It could be in that category.
Yeah. Consumer goods.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. All right.
And are you going to explain what those 3 at the bottom are there for?
Well, let's talk about that. So what I was saying before was that any of these a kid could have personal experience with and want to invent. There have been some suggestions from some people we talked to, and an opportunity here that I'll go into specifically in a second here, to talk about themes that kids might not personally have any experience with, whether it's water problems in Africa, or landing on Mars, or other types of big picture types of problems. I know that some of you guys run challenges around certain themes, and we noticed that some of those themes are very altruistic and sustainability themes, things like that. And we actually have sponsors that want us to do awards around ones like that. Microsoft in Connecticut sponsors an accessibility award that's geared around any handicapped or blind or other types of accessibility type issues. So we don't really have this list on here right now. And Bill, could you go on to the next page about space?
Sure. Yeah.
And let me just tell you about an opportunity that we have and what really sort of drove some of this thinking. It turns out that for the 3 days prior to our conference in Washington, D.C., there's a major conference that I actually attend every year on anybody and everybody who's planning on sending a live human being to Mars. And there you get SpaceX and Virgin Galactic and Blue Origin and JPL and NASA and all Boeing, Lockheed, all those big players are all there. And it's all the people that are putting anything on Mars today, robotic, in preparation for going to Mars. And you've also got notable people like Buzz Aldrin that come every year. And so there's a real opportunity for us to reach out to them. I've already talked to them. They've said, hey, if you want to do some sort of joint thing, great, we could do that. We could do it Thursday afternoon or Thursday evening or Friday morning. And since people are here anyway, they've flown in from Houston or flown in from California, for them to stay another overnight, particularly for something as worthy as this, it's reasonable to think that they would do that. And so it would be pretty cool to kickstart this all off with Buzz Aldrin talking to the kids about all the neat things that need to be invented in order to get humans to go to Mars. I can see that being a really exciting thing for kids. I would hope it would be exciting things for today's kids to listen to. But the hesitation I have is, okay, if we have a space category, is it a problem with anybody that none of these kids are actually involved in space, and they're just sort of, I won't say making it up, but it's all very conceptual? Any thoughts on that?
Well, they could figure out how to grow potatoes on the Martian soil. I was kind of laughing here, thinking from the entrepreneurial aspect, like what could they bring back from Mars and sell here?
Well, remember the big pet rock cave?
Oh, sorry.
Okay,
somebody has an emergency announcement here.
Somebody has a lot of feedback. Somebody just took their phone off mute. There we go. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. We're under construction here. Yeah, I apologize. One thing that I did hear, I think space, like if you want to give kids an opportunity to do an invention type thing with that, would go into transportation, agriculture, whatever. But I think it's how you frame it, that what I hear you talking about is like a social entrepreneurship theme. But what I do like is having someone from that group be a keynote speaker, to kind of, what's the ultimate in innovation that would be possible. I'm sorry if somebody already said that.
Yeah, like I know Andy Weir, getting Andy Weir to do a Skype with us and to all the kids. But I think they wouldn't. I don't know if they'd relate with Andy Weir, who was the author of The Martian, as much as they would with, a real astronaut.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Andy, or I'm sorry, Danny, just so we have the context here. So the idea is that potentially space for social enterprise or social issues or the environment in green could be essentially matrixed with whatever categories we end up with to be essentially additional award or an additional certification that the children might get.
Okay, now you said the word matrix, and so do people in their programs allow kids with these themes to apply for multiple awards? Can a kid win multiple awards across multiple categories?
Sherilyn from Ohio, and during my tenure, and I can't speak for Veronica, the last 3 years, we did allow that. And to the other 2 points, the broader issues that kids might not necessarily have hands-on experience with, you're concerned with, like space or things like that, over time we have had many kids, even without a category, develop inventions along the social enterprise scale, such as potable water for Brazil, or with all the shootings, kids can't shoot guns, but they are aware that there's a lot of guns going off, so we had a lot of kids in over time make inventions for gun safety. It doesn't necessarily have to be something they would be doing in their immediate world, like pets cleaning their rooms and making their bed. They do have that global vision, but to Leslie's point earlier, too many categories on many levels can be dangerous because kids can't decide, and or when you have a sponsor come in and sponsor an award and then there's only 1 or 2 entries, no one's happy, because if you only have 1 entry, that's it. That's the winner, and it may not be something, because these are kids that the sponsors are comfortable with. Less is more in this particular instance, given just the simple math of 300 and from all the different programs. If you have too many categories, you do run the risk of not having enough entries or any at all, actually, and some, that can be bad when you've had it sponsored. So kind of guiding them like a funnel, but not too tight, works.
That makes sense.
And I just at the high school level, for KSHS and the talent, Siemens talent, you have to compete in 1 category, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to clarify, are you talking about they could submit like 3 separate inventions in 3 separate categories?
No. I was talking about that they could submit 1 invention that happens to be both energy and space.
I mean, I think that's a problem, because you could have a kid that just, has something and then she's winning every category. Because almost any invention, you can try to squeeze it into different categories.
Mm-hmm.
But,
well, maybe it would help to talk for just a second about how many categories you think is sort of manageable in this first year, or that work well in your program. What's the number of categories that you think is appropriate for something like this?
I'm sorry, this is Leslie. I keep putting you on mute so you don't hear our construction.
Sure.
I believe there is 7 or 8 categories. I'm just going to look it up. If you want to go on, I can pull it back up. I'm just going to try to look. Sorry, wasn't prepared for this one. We have 8. So you have to pick up like chemistry, environmental, physics, engineering. But I would think, how many do you have now? 13?
There's 13 on this list. That's correct.
Okay.
Plus the 3 at the bottom.
I'd love to hear people with the elementary experience, because I can't speak to that.
Right. Other thoughts? Okay, so we have 1 program that does 8. What else? What does everybody else do?
This is Tracy from Tennessee. I do the elementary. Ours is just the 4th, 5th, and 6th graders, and there's only 2 categories.
Okay.
Does that completely answer the question? How else can I?
Yeah. No, that's great.
Oh, okay.
That's
Okay, that's what I thought. Yes.
Cool.
They're pretty broad. There's one is a brand new game, or the other one is something to make life easier.
Mm-hmm. That's great. So what else? What does everyone else do?
This is Leslie again, just to clarify, it's 7 categories. Just looked it up. Thanks.
Super.
Well, Connecticut probably does around 14, 15, but that's probably way too many.
Yeah. Okay.
Going back to Ohio, this is Sherilyn again. In the 18 years, we did a hybrid. We did grade buckets, and then layered on top optional categories, because some kids really didn't know what they were going to vent at the younger age. And to Danny's point, we were, I believe still are, K-8. So for a kindergartner, you kind of have to really open the net large and let them really explore what might be their idea. And if it didn't fit into a category, they're, left out. So we did buckets by grade, and then layered on top of that the opportunity to identify themselves as a category. So, they could in fact win 2 different awards perhaps. It rarely happened because we did it both ways. We hybridized.
Mm-hmm. So you had more categories at the younger age than you did at the older age, it sounds like.
No, we had about 4 or 5 categories. We adopted 2 categories a year, 2 new ones a year, based on sponsor drive and also just what's going on in the world, that they could identify themselves as that category and compete in that as well. But that was a layer over and above. We grouped K through 2 together, and then standalone third, standalone fourth, standalone fifth, standalone sixth buckets, and then grouped 7th and 8th together. So they could either just be a broad brush competing within their grade level or identify as well to be eligible for selection by, for example, our agriculture category was when we had the soybean council. So agriculture could be an irrigation system. It could be anything dealing with agriculture. So it could go many ways, and they could win either in the grade category that they were in if they were noted as, a top inventor, or that. So we hybridized to try to gather as many as we could.
Right. And so when you looked at the categories, that was across the whole competition, though. Right.
Yes.
So it was all grades. Yep. Got it.
Yeah.
So, Bill, I've got a question here. Of the people that are saying that they don't have very many categories, how many of those people sell sponsorships against the categories?
So let's go back to Charlene. It sounds like you
Ohio
sell
did.
sponsorship.
Ohio did. Initially, for example, we would, because the way we wrote it was we would integrate theme-specific curriculum each year. For example, Honda was automotive, and so they owned both that curriculum that was pushed out with support for the teachers and the educators, and then also owned that category of award that they could either opt to be part of the selection judging process or not. And Honda did not. Time Warner Cable sponsored. They did not theme specific. We built another program for them, which the prize was actually for kids to get on their airwaves. We called it, the pricing could be different. Soybean with agriculture, Cardinal Health with healthy living. But those would be tied to a package of, for example, $20,000, first right of refusal next year, and then it would theme in that area. So it was tied to sponsor dollars.
Right. I won't lie to you. One of the reasons why we want to have as many categories as possible because we can sell more sponsorships around those categories.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, and it's a driver. Absolutely.
Does anyone else?
Yeah, this is Leslie. So that makes a lot of sense. Mine are sponsored by the Department of Defense and then Siemens, so there is no sponsorship. I mean, you just are straight category. So that makes sense of how you want to do it.
Right. How about others? Do you have sponsors of categories?
This is Tracy in Tennessee, and we have one sponsor, the State Farm Insurance Company sponsors it, and so no categories, there's no conflict at all there. It's irrelevant.
Okay, great. Others?
This is Annalisa from Chicago. We don't have categories like these. We only have grade level categories.
Okay.
This year we might consider adopting the ones that the National Invention Convention decides on, just so that we can be consistent. But we have sponsor specific grade levels or specific places, like third place across all the grades.
Gotcha. Well, Danny, just so we move on from this and get to the other topics, would it make sense if we maybe take another crack at this list and then share it and maybe do a survey to get additional feedback?
That sounds great to me. Everybody okay with that? Anybody have a problem with that?
Good.
Okay.
Cool. All right. Well, our next topic is going to be on the sponsor packages. So I'm going to, and now you're seeing my next appointment. There we go. Don't we love computers? So, okay. So we've got money, and Danny's got actually, we put together some sponsor packages, and the goal here is really to walk through them and then talk about how we can help maybe in the local and state programs in terms of helping to raise money. So, Danny, do you want to walk through these, or do you want me to walk them?
I'll go ahead and take a stab at this. So, in our philosophy regarding selling sponsorships for the National Invention Convention itself, we wanted to balance two things. One, presence at the show and what you could get at the show, and then what you can do the other 363 days of the year. And the higher package sponsorship actually draws heavily on presence the other 363 days of the year, and the lower level is focused on a lot of presence at the show. Now, the higher level package also gets presence at the show and preferred presence at the show, but just a stronger year-round element that when we have speaking opportunities, we'll go to them first, and when we have press opportunities, we'll go to them first, and they'll have more prominent logos and things like that. I thought I'd share this with you guys just to get any feedback if you guys have that. It's a lot to digest here in just a few slides, and we'll send this out to everybody so you have that. But more so just to let you know sort of where our thinking is about trying to link. You'll see, for instance, there is a line item in here about categories and being able to make a special award. That's only available to someone at the $100,000 level and not a $25,000 level. So if we're able to have 8 awards and go out there and raise that, that's $800,000 of income to us to be able to go and turn around and do a lot of amazing things around the country in terms of scholarships and sponsorships and some things like that. So we would love for this to be a money-raising opportunity for us to be able to go and support the other outreach that we're looking to do with you guys. So I thought I'd share this with you. I don't know that we're going to have a real fruitful discussion here unless anybody has any specific questions. We're happy to debate that. Bill, if you want to add anything to that. Bill did a lot of work in putting this together initially. So a lot of this is Bill's work, and he's got a lot of experience. Bill, why don't you tell me in one sentence why you know a lot about sponsorships?
For a lot of different reasons. I've raised a lot of money primarily around events in some form or another. So it may directly relate to what we're trying to do here.
Well, I was thinking about your sailing experience. That's a pretty unique thing.
Yeah, I've done a little sailing, and we had to raise money for it. How's that?
Well, he's being bashful. He was a very well-respected, nationally placing sales team as an SAIL team there. So in any case, does anybody have any comments or thoughts or questions or ruminations about this?
Why wouldn't the $100,000 investors have a booth or table? You think they just wouldn't want one?
Say that again, Helen?
Why wouldn't a $100,000 investor want a booth or table? You suspect that that's just not at the level in which they would get involved?
Is that Lucia? They should have a booth or table. What? Bill, I'm not on the screen right now. Could you?
Yeah, I think the check mark just isn't in there. They definitely do, Helen.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah. Good catch. Yeah, there's nothing that the upper level doesn't get that the lower level gets. So yeah,
that's what I figured. Yeah.
Yeah, good catch.
Okay, so Bill, let's go on to the next topic then.
Sure. So next is really to talk about how do we take this to each local geography, and so that the notion of joint fundraising. And I'm just going to advance to the next slide. So Danny, you put this one in, so I don't, maybe sure. you want to walk through this.
So when we talk about, there's 2 levels of fundraising that we are doing. We're doing stuff for the national organization where we're going out and raising money to drive the national organization and national event. And the prior sponsorship slides that we showed you are for that purpose, and to go out and raise that sort of money. So those are national sponsors that are trying to have a national presence. Within each state, you guys are looking for state sponsors that want to have a state presence. And you may have national people that want to have presence in 6, 7, 8 different states. That's great. But you're mostly interested in them spending money in your state. And so you're probably going to have some sort of similar lineup of, oh, you want to give us money? Well, here's the packages you can buy to sponsor us. And so, as we mentioned before, for those people that want help, not everybody wants help, and that's fine, to help raising money within their state, we've got a joint fundraising program to go out and raise state dollars for state sponsors to drive the deployment and expansion of your own state organizations. And so we've already started with 3 states and are working through the early stage things in that respect. And I wanted to share with you the types of materials that we need. We've created a generic state budget. We've created a generic state presentation and other state level materials for those people that want to use them. But to drive them and customize them for your state, these are the 3 or 4 things that we need, like pictures, we need data, specific contact information to go on the Contact Us page, that sort of thing, to just go ahead and be able to complete the package. And so if you are interested in having us help you raise money to send your kids to D.C. and to also expand your state program, let us know. But recognize that we're probably going to turn back around and say, well, here are the 3 or 4 things that we need in order to sort of help you do that. Any high-level questions on that discussion? I mean, low-level questions.
Did you want to talk about, and maybe everybody already kind of knows the formula for the split. When you say a win-win model, did you want to take a minute and just describe that?
Well, sure. So the model that we've been taking out to the states, and recognize this is an open discussion and an evolution. So if anything doesn't sit right, give us some feedback. But the idea is that we're going to be spending our time coming to your state, sitting in meetings and helping to raise money and providing materials for everybody and guiding us through the whole process using our combined fundraising expertise. And the model that we've laid out there, and we actually have a document that we're going to be sending out shortly on this topic, is largely a win-win for both parties, where we split the actual cash funds 50-50, but of the money that we take in, we then turn back around and allocate 60% of those funds back to your state in terms of services like professional development, training, software, other web development, other types of services that you guys might need to go ahead and get your stuff done. So it effectively ends up being an 80-20 split of the use of funds with the states. And up to now, we've gotten pretty positive feedback on that model, but I'm certainly happy to entertain any concerns or objections to that. But that's presently what we've been going out with. And so in our model, we would work with you to develop all the state-specific information, set up targets, work with you to set up the meetings, and actually go there and go through the meetings and follow it all the way through to actual money coming in the door. No money comes in the door, we don't make any money either, so we're highly incented to make sure that happens. So any thoughts on the fundraising questions? I mean, some of you are doing fine on your own and you don't need any help, and that's fine, that's great. This is all optional. It's merely a service that we're trying to provide and provide a mechanism to get compensated for the service for the benefit of everybody. Any thoughts?
Questions or thoughts on the fundraising?
This is Dawn from University of Iowa, and I think that the assistance model of kind of developing a win-win to help the states raise money with more of a national sponsors as well as those state sponsors is going to be really important to various groups. I don't know that the person here in Iowa is Lori, are you on today? Is Lori Uhrig on today?
Ashley is on for her.
Yep.
Ashley, are you there?
Yep, I'm here. I guess, what is your perspective, Ashley, just thinking from kind of the Invent Iowa, is that an important piece of this fundraising?
I think it, in some respects it will be. I just don't know to what degree yet. I mean, there's not a lot of funding coming in for Invent Iowa currently.
Right.
So that might be something that would be helpful in the long run.
How is the program funded today, Ashley?
We usually have partnerships, a few, and then kids have a small fee that they pay when they submit their invention.
Got it. Got it. Okay, cool. I think I interrupted Dawn. Dawn, what were you going to say?
No, that was basically my, I'm kind of on the outside a little bit of that program, just on the periphery. That was my perception that, for something like this that is such a kind of high-end, next-level experience for students, that this will be a really important piece.
Yeah. I think that it would, kids getting to the National Invention Convention, it would depend on funding.
Sure.
Right, that's pretty much what we've heard from everybody, and that's why we figured that in order to make this event a success, we had to be willing to go out there and put our money where our mouth is, or I guess our mouth where the money is, and help raise those funds.
Right.
Are there others that have a thought or question around fundraising or co-fundraising?
This is Sherilyn, not a question, but perhaps sharing what we're actually doing with one of the states, if that's all right, Dan. You might be helpful just to play it out on a case basis.
Sure.
As an example, not on Abby's not on the call today, correct? She's on vacation. Abby, South Carolina.
She's not only on vacation; she's on her honeymoon.
Wow. Oh well, then we can absolutely talk without her. That's even better. So. Goodness gracious. Okay, so using Abby as an example, because she's on a well-deserved and we hope fabulous honeymoon. Abby's one of the states that has contacted and said, yes, we'd love, for you to help. So what we've been doing is Abby and also Annalise up in Chicago, who is a former Invention Convention person from Ohio, who I'm ever so happy to know, are two of the places where we've asked for certain information to help. They've provided photographs from their event. In Abby's case, with Duke Energy Invention Convention, we're able to put that specific information in a South Carolina state-sponsored presentation that we're working with her on. And when she gets back from her honeymoon, I already have her availability in the next 6 to 8 weeks. So I'll travel out there, bring our group congratulations on her, wedded bliss. Hopefully she'll have a wonderful tan and we can all be jealous. But I'll actually go with her. She's provided companies that she thinks would be amenable to and welcoming to know about our efforts together. And so when she gets back, I will be heading out directly to South Carolina, and we'll hopefully have 3 or 4 meetings with companies that she believes would have a vested interest in supporting her event. So we'll be a tag team, and I'll be able to speak to the NIC and also the 20 years worth of history I have in this space, and she'll be able to bring the South Carolina piece, and hopefully we'll go from there. That's what it looks like in real life, actually. She has sent pictures and data and whatnot. Danny's done the yeoman's work of putting the state-specific sponsor package together that then we will actually physically carry out to her in South Carolina and meet companies and hopefully be able to assist in both ways. That's what it actually looks like in the next coming week. So that's what we would like to do if anyone else would like help in that area. I'll be heading up to Chicago and hopefully Massachusetts with Helen, but that's what it actually looks like.
Thanks for that. That's great, Cheryl. And one thing that I also want to mention that comes up very early in the discussion is a lot of the organizations that we're working with are doing district-wide or relatively geographically limited operations. And to go ahead and start putting in place a state sponsorship and state focus, you need to sort of consider what sort of regionalization you might have and how you grow up into that regionalization. We've put together some documents that we'll be sharing on the next phone call about how to jumpstart your operations within a state by starting with specific cities. But for instance, we've just been working with a group about a California plan and trying to define how to divide California up into regions, and do you have a state finals in a state that is as big as it is, and how do you fund that, and where do you put it, and those sorts of questions. They come up because they come up very early in the discussions when someone says, well, geez, San Francisco is an awful long way from San Diego. How are we going to get there? And well, we've got one in San Diego, so you're okay. So any further thoughts on this topic?
Any other questions on fundraising?
Well, we need to start bringing up some really controversial topics so we get everybody talking.
Nobody wants to go off mute.
I guess not.
This isn't a question, but it's just a final comment, I guess, from Sherilyn. If
Sure.
there is a desire for some help in fundraising, I guess the understood element that I'll say out loud anyway because it helps is sooner the better, because as you know, time moves quickly and people take some time to make decisions. So we're ready to go and come out and help as much as possible, but time just moves very quickly, and all of a sudden it'll be Jan 1. And so if there is a desire, just hit the button and we can at least have a conversation on the phone about it and, determine whether we need, a little bit better. But, think about it, but also reach out sooner rather than later.
That's great. So Sherilyn and Danny, should people reach out directly to Sherilyn, Danny, or both?
I think everybody should come through me, and then I'll allocate resources based on who's available and what makes sense and geographically and that sort of thing.
Sounds perfect. Cool.
Okay, and I have dibs on Hawaii. Just let me say that. I have dibs on Hawaii.
Perfect. So no Alaska then.
I like Alaska.
There you go. So next step. So we have our next call. Danny, I think you put this in.
Right. Well, you had a next step slide, so I put next steps. Why don't you take the next step slide since you can see it?
You can't see it?
To take the landline phone, I had to go out of range of my computer.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, so next steps are, you see how coordinated we are.
We're
really impressing people.
A roaming farmhouse, just certain parts of the house just don't get it with the other part of the house.
Got it. Well, we're impressing people with our coordination. So let's see. Next steps, closing USPTO agreement and starting local logistics for hotels and buses, et cetera. Danny, do you have a sense of timing on when the PTO agreement will be finalized?
They literally told me that it may not be finalized till the day before the event. I kid you not. So there's a huge leap of faith against the incompetence of the government that we will have an event and everything's fine, and we just got to accept that that's the way it is in dealing with this scenario. So I think we'll get a very early read on submitting it as to whether or not they're going to, once they push it through their process, you're in process. Most of the contention happens getting into the process. So I think in the next month or so, we should know about that. But I'm going to have to start negotiating all the hotel contracts and everything pretty soon. So we're assuming it's happening. We're moving on it, and they are too. They're counting on it too. And it's just the only thing that gets people to move sometimes is a deadline. And if the deadline is an event, well, they know they got to get it done by the event. So.
Right. And the next topic is marketing support, and in terms of next steps there, you have anyone?
Well, the question is we need to be building out a logo and building out a website and the marketing stuff. And while we've done a great job of getting pro bono legal and accounting expertise, we haven't really been found a lot of marketing expertise. So if anybody on the phone call has got a great relationship with an ad agency or someone that does really good work and does pro bono stuff, if you could send that contact my way and make a warm introduction, we'd love to engage with someone. Other than that, we're going to have to use some of our scarce early funds to do that. And
Danny?
Yes.
Danny, this is Veronica in Ohio.
Oh, I love your site. Sold. Yes.
Our board president, I'm going to volunteer him for a second, but he's actually the vice president of sales for a media company called Gatehouse Media, which is now in like 40 states. And from what I'm told, they're really interested in innovation in general. So after this call, maybe we could talk and I could set up a time for you to talk to him and We could see if, I mean, my point is they're all marketers, so maybe we could see if we can get some pro bono work from there from a national perspective, not just Ohio.
That's awesome. I'll follow up with you probably tomorrow on that. That's okay?
Okay.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Veronica, we have site envy, so yours is beautiful for sure. So, Danny, the next was fundraising support, the next 3 to 6 months to get funds. And
Well, I just want to point out to people that what Cheryl Lynn said is that a lot of people make their budgetary decisions by the end of the year for next year, and that it's going to take 3 to 6 months for money to come in. So if you are looking for funds for your students to be available next May, if you work the numbers backwards, you get to November, it's October. Enough said, just really trying to keep out there that if you are interested, let us know.
Okay. And celebrity endorsements. Can you narrow us down to who would be good, in your mind, celebrities to have endorsements from?
So we're trying to build out a board of trustees with people that have a reputation for being involved with certain aspects of innovation, whether it's invention, whether it's entrepreneurship, whether it's media coverage of that, or they portrayed those types of roles in various movie roles or things like that. For instance, we've been talking lately with Louis Foreman, who's the CEO of Edison Nation and Everyday Edisons and Inventus, and some other, and he's also publisher of Inventors Digest. So clearly someone that's in this space, very well received, very well known at the White House, would be a great addition to our board if he would be willing to join us. So we're on the hunt for people like Mark Cuban, or any of the Shark Tank type of people. Those would be great additions. Sometimes it's people that have portrayed business person roles in major movies, and I'm not going to go through the laundry list of people that have played business interests or inventor interests, but I guess Fred McMurray comes to mind, but he's long gone. But someone like that would be awesome, right? Just if anybody here has connections into anybody that is relatively famous that has an invention or entrepreneurship angle to them, they could drop us a line. We're trying to just build out that. That's going to be very helpful for the public's legitimacy and the attention that we can get when we actually go out and make our big announcement.
Cool. And then the final thing is this week's must-do, the allocation survey. So what I'm going to suggest that I'll do is, just so everybody knows, we record these calls, so within about a day or so, I'll be able to email this out, and I'll email these sort of current focuses out along with another link to the allocation survey. So if you can find it in the last email, that's great. But also within about the next 24 hours, I'll send it out again. And if you could get to that, that would be awesome. The only other thing to mention is the next call will be on Tuesday, November 3rd at 4 Eastern Time, and we're really trying to get into a rhythm where at least a few days before, if not a week before, we send out the agenda and any preliminary materials as well as the newsletter that Danny's been writing, so that you have as much you're as current as you can be for these calls, because we really want to make these highly interactive and really get your engagement. So before we close, Danny, is there anything else that you want to make mention of?
Is there anything anybody from the floor would like to mention, or any news that they've had lately that was particularly exciting about their programs, or any progress that they've made, or anything that anybody would like to share?
Hey, it's Annalisa. I have a quick question. Is there like a Google folder or a place where we're putting all of these documents and PowerPoints from every meeting?
Yeah, that's a good question. We will. We have kind of one we're using internally, but we'll create one that that doesn't clog you up with sort of everything we're working on, but gives you sort of the relevant stuff. So that's a great idea. So we'll make that available in the next few days.
That'd be awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Is it possible, have you sent out the meeting invites kind of moving from now into the future, or I don't have one on for the 3rd, and I just wanted to know, I want to get those on my calendar so that things don't get scheduled around them.
Yeah, I'll send out the next few. I had hesitated to do it right before so I didn't confuse people. I know the last time I did that, A few people thought the meeting had been moved. So.
Okay. I just want to make sure I'm missing something.
Yeah, no. So we'll plan on every other Tuesday at 4 Eastern, for the foreseeable future. But I'll send out at least the next month or two, maybe through the end of the year, so we have that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Cool. Awesome. Any other thoughts? Go ahead.
I think it would
I want to thank everyone for. Go ahead.
Hold on just a second. I think it would be really useful for everybody if we started developing like milestones or a reverse timeline or something that said, okay, by this date we have to have this done, and by this date we have to have this done, this type of thing.
It's a great idea. Danny, can you put that together?
Yes, I will.
Okay.
Bill, I actually have to drop now, but if you could close up, I'd appreciate that.
We're ready to roll. So thank you all, and we'll look forward to talking to you on the 4th. Please feel free to reach out on any of these items, and we'll keep this ball moving forward. So thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.